All right, guys, welcome to Sunday evening podcast. Tonight, guys, you are in the Lions Den with Mr. Keith Evans. Man, this guy has a resume about as long as I-35. So he's into everything and he knows quite a bit. So, hey, if you guys are interested a little bit about him, please leave all your comments in the comments and I will get them to him. I will put them out there so he can see them and he can answer them. Quick shout out to everybody that's going to join us today. Man, like I said, this is going to be an interesting show. And also, to all you guys that are watching on YouTube, to my new YouTube podcast, season 4, which kicked off today. So, hey, you guys go over there, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And, hey, let's get these numbers up like the other ones. And, hey, let's have some fun. You know what I'm saying? So, but with that being said, oh yeah, hey, and my co-host Irene will be here shortly. Like always, she's asleep probably, but she'll pop in here in a little bit. But with that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Keith Evans and let him introduce himself to the world, and and just go from there. Hey, Mr. Evans, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Tell the world a little bit about yourself and what you do.
My name is Keith Evans and I'm retired, so I have lots of time to do paranormal research. And I'm a paranormal researcher. I'm also a little bit of an empath, but it's not strong enough to just use that for paranormal research. So I use a lot of equipment when I do my paranormal research. I like to use the Melmeter, the Obelisk 5, thermal camera, and I find those three probably give me the most consistent paranormal data. But every ghost and spirit has their own little knack of what they like to do. Some
Mm-hmm.
ghosts and spirits just like to play around with your temperature on your meter, and some ghosts and spirits just like to rattle off words. So every ghost and spirit has a certain niche for the type of tool that you have, and we'll use that. So it's best to take as many tools as you can, paranormal equipment, because you might run across a ghost and spirit that don't like the few that you do take, and then you're going to get zero data, and it doesn't make for a good paranormal short session. And I put weekly paranormal short sessions on YouTube. So if anyone wants to check out my YouTube channel, it's called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
All right. Mr. Evans, you mentioned something that you use a lot. You use a lot of devices. And I see more and more people going that route. But the hardest thing for me is we're lining these pockets of individuals that are making millions of dollars off of these devices, whether they work or not. I'd rather see people go back to the beginning and use their cells as that dowsing rod, that K2, that milliliter. I'd rather see them use the gifts that they got to detect spirits. Because I think it's more open when your body, if you let your body be that device for you compared to a $300 device, you really don't know if it's going to work or not. Your
Right.
body has never, I don't think your body has ever failed you when it comes to a spirit or something being close to you and want to communicate with you. I just think that your body has too many has too many systems set up where it can
Excuse me.
alert you on certain things. Do you agree or disagree on that?
Well, with me, my body doesn't really give me too much indication. Sometimes I'll have like a ghost or spirit will cause me to itch, but that's only happened one time that I could remember. One time, a ghost or spirit touched me. That might have happened maybe 12 times over the last 20 years. So being touched is kind of rare. And uh, for instance, I have back injuries from the military.
Hmm.
Sometimes back injuries will make you feel like somebody's touching you. So I it may be reliable for someone that doesn't have a back injury, but for me, it just might be the way my back injury is coming across that day. So, but anyway, I've been touched on other parts of the body where I'd have to look to see if somebody was standing there because sometimes when I'm not doing paranormal research, when I'm just during my day, I think it was probably about a couple months ago, it just felt like somebody done this and just done a gentle pat and left her hand on my back, and I looked real quick and nobody was there. Of course, I was home alone. I didn't expect anyone to be there, but and being on the shoulder like that wouldn't have nothing to do with the back injury, causing it to feel like something is touching my leg. So
Interesting.
sometimes, as a paranormal researcher, you'll get communication throughout the day, even when you're not doing paranormal research. But I just don't have the time to stop and whip out my equipment and do paranormal research. A lot of times in my house, I have lights that'll blink. And the average person will say, "Well, Keith, that's your light bulb going bad. Don't you know that by now?" Real condescending, like,
Hmm.
well, that same blinking light bulb's been blinking off and on for the last 3 years and it's never went bad yet.
Oh
I've
wow,
never
yeah, you're
changed it.
right.
So, so anyway, sometimes when bulbs are at the end of their life, they will blink and then that'll be it. But this light bulb seems to have a mind of its own, and it seems to. This is in my bedroom. It seems to modulate or fluctuate. Somebody told me sometimes it has something to do with your power, the energy grid. So maybe that could explain it, but I've never seen that with the rest of the lights in the house. If it was doing it in the bedroom and it was the energy grid, wouldn't it do it with the other lights? I purposely to,
Definitely.
uh, turned I purposely turned the other lights on, and it's only happening to one light in the bedroom, not any of the other lights. So it's not the energy grid. I ruled that out. But I mean, I try to think of everything it could be and go
Right.
about it specifically because I want people to at least look at me as being legitimate. Now, there will be some people that will never think of me as being legitimate. I have family members who are dead now who always thought I was a crazy crackpot, someone who should never be trusted because he sees or believes in things that aren't real. So, and that's sad. It takes a very close-minded person to think that way. And I had a lot of relatives that were very close to me that thought definitely that way about me, and
Hmm.
that hurts. It does. It'll always be a negative mark that I will. I wish I'd been born in another family who really thought highly of the paranormal, but my
You
family
know,
did not.
it's interesting because it seems like the numbers might be wrong, but I'm just gonna throw a number that I see that's in my head. I always see maybe 30% of the world's population believes that there is no life after death. You know what I'm saying? The 70% believes that there is. And I'm just trying to figure out is what does it take for those 30 from those other 30% to believe that there is life after death. To me, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Keith, it's basic common sense to me to believe that there is something after death. I I wasn't born a Christian. I wasn't born a Baptist. I wasn't born with all these different religious beliefs or what's going to happen to me after I die. But if you sit down at the table and you think about it for a minute, and everything that you think of and everything that you've seen all makes freaking sense. It all makes sense. One, let's think about the whole aspect of death. You leave your physical body, true enough. But if you have, and everybody has that 10 volt of energy in their body, that is pure energy. That is energy. Energy doesn't die. Energy doesn't go away. So
That's
why is
true.
it so hard that why is it so hard for people to believe that we are energy based individuals? Everybody on this planet is energy based. Why is it so hard not to believe that there's not something that your energy carries on to something bigger and something better? Because the way it's supposedly told in whichever religion that you believe on, that you're going to go to heaven, you're going to be judged, especially the Christians, the Catholics, the Baptists, they all believe in that. But why is it so hard for so many other different peoples not to believe that once your energy is gone, it just turns off like a light socket?
I don't know. The only thing I can say is so many people, they're taught not to think. They're taught to just be like receivers and not look at the information critically and say, hey, some of that I believe, and some of that is a lot of smoke being blown in my direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people fall into that category. Where I was always an independent thinker. I never ever followed what my family did. If my family was doing it, I would say, well, is that for me? And none of my family members did paranormal research. None of my family members were interested in Bigfoot. And I don't know if you remember that one movie that came out in 1960. Well, you might be too young. 1967 or 68. It was that it covered more than one topic, but the main thing was that gentleman that took the picture of Bigfoot walking alongside the river. I think it was either Oregon or Washington State.
Yeah, it was
And
somewhere
I
in the
wanted to go see
Northwest.
that. What's that?
Yeah, it was somewhere in the Northwest.
I definitely needed to go see that, and I did. I had to go see it by myself because no family member would go with me. So uh, I just started to evaluate things on my own. I just didn't, some kids will, if their mother and father say, "Oh, don't like that," or "Don't believe in that," they'll just follow suit. And I never did that. I always analyzed it and said, "Well, is it worth believing? Is it worth me thinking about? Is it worth my time?" Look at the evidence first before you just say, "I don't want to see that movie." I really
You know,
enjoyed that movie.
is it the biggest reason, Keith, that people are so nonchalant about things is just because society has stopped asking the number one question, and that's why. People have stopped. People, believe it or not, Keith, people have stopped using that word. Back in my day, everything was why. Why this? Why that? And parents got sick of it because they couldn't give the answer to it. They didn't know the answers to half the things that I wanted to know. And so I would always ask, why? Why is this
Right.
like this, Dad? Why is this like that, Grandma? Oh boy, quit bothering me. People today do not ask that very specific question. Why? If people today would ask why, Keith, I think this world would be so totally different. It's like you say, everybody is just caught up in the moment of their everyday life. They don't sit back and think just for a moment because life is going on too fast for them. if you just stop, take a deep breath, and enjoy that moment, and at certain times of your and just look around and see how the world is really is, just look and just realize how this world really is, and you're like, wow. Then all the questions you ever wanted to know, you'll be able to answer because you're taking the time to evaluate life, to actually see and understand certain things. If you don't take that time to stop and evaluate, look, life is gonna go so fast. You're gonna miss everything. And every now and then, you know what? Even today's kids don't even ask why to their parents. Now, because like you said, Keith, they are so into the moment where everything just trickles in. Everything is okay for them. There's no questions being asked.
Well,
And to me, that's a big problem.
as a 4 year old, I always wanted to know why. And my parents got upset with me for constantly asking why. And I remember my father, he was an Army reservist, and he was taking a course on how to build radios and TVs. And I thought that was so cool. And, I would ask him, well, how does a radio work? How does a TV work? And, he was taking this course and he could actually explain it to me. And I just thought that was cool. I wanted to know how and why things work. And that also helped me in the paranormal field because if you can capture enough different types of information, then you can understand how that ghost appeared to you. For instance, like, is the ghost appearing thermally? If you use thermal equipment, you can see if the ghost somehow is manipulating electromagnetic energy so that it's, warmer than the ambient temperature. And that's just whatever the normal room temperature is. Like in Florida on a hot day, the ambient temperature might be 100 degrees. So if you were in a cold place and a ghost manipulates electromagnetic energy, you probably would be able to pick it up a lot easier if your ambient temperature is 32. Because ghosts and spirits, they're going to only raise the temperature for a short period of time that you'll be able to notice it with thermal
Mhm.
imaging or a thermal camera. And it might just be a small, very small area. But most of the cold areas that I've picked up with my thermal camera have been very small and they haven't lasted very long. And a lot of times when you see a cold area with the C5 thermal camera, you think, well, say that area looks like it's on the floor, over there. Well, over there. That area could be right in front of your eyeball or right in front of the camera screen. You don't know where that area of coldness is between, you just know it's someplace between the floor where you're pointing your C5 camera and the front of the lens of the C5 camera. It's someplace in between there. You don't really know for sure. Now you can go to the floor and check, and I've tried to do that. And most of the time, the floor is not cold. The floor feels the same all over, you know? So sometimes that cold area is somewhere between, it might just be in space between you and the floor. It's somewhere's
Yeah.
in between there. So a lot of times, the more the more equipment you have, you can attempt to identify your ghost or spirit. If you have some type of um, camera that can pick up ultraviolet light, you might be able to pick up a ghost or spirit somewhat materializing that you can't pick up with just regular light that we normally see with our vision. And so sometimes that happens. I've very rarely picked up anything with night vision other than see things slightly move. I remember one time I was doing paranormal research in a uh, old motel. I never got permission to write a book about it or anything, but I had the camera facing towards the bed because I'd stayed there like 3 nights in a row. And the first night, I kept hearing like the strings on Venetian blinds at the bottom. They
Mm-hmm.
have this little plastic thing. It
Right.
sounded like that thing was hitting the Venetian blind. But when I'd wake up, nothing was moving. So I took my night vision, aimed it where I was sleeping, and turned it on, and then watched it the next day. And there was only a few seconds where the whole string of the Venetian blind started to move.
Oh wow.
That little string you pull. So I might have took. I think I had 3 or 4 hours of time left on my uh, night vision camera. I don't have that night vision camera anymore. That camera was washed away during Hurricane Michael in October of 2018. But that was a very good camera. So anyway, uh, 3 or 4 hours of footage just to see two separate times where it moved, and it to me, to the best of my knowledge, I did not pick up any sound. So even though it moved, it didn't hit hard enough to make that clink clink sound as the plastic hits the side of the Venetian blind or whatever they call these blinds now that fold and go shut.
Interesting.
So if
Because
you have the right equipment, you can capture more paranormal activity, but it's definitely going to take time. It's not if you watch an hour-long show on TV,
hmm
that might have been a week's worth of them paranormal investigating just to get something to put in an hour's worth on TV. And if you go, you might not see anything. Your first 2 or 3 paranormal investigations, and then the fourth paranormal investigation, might knock your socks off. And the only problem is, it'll happen behind you, and your camera will be pointing in the wrong direction, and you'll just say, "Damn," you know.
do you think proposal is the difference between capturing evidence and not getting evidence? Because sometimes the way that you propose certain ideas to spirits, they might react to it because it's something that they've yet to encounter, something new, something fresh.
Well,
So,
I
is
find
that possible?
most of the time, ghosts and spirits, whatever they do, they don't want it to be on camera so much. That's the reason why you have to at least have 3 or 4 cameras going in different directions to catch everything. And then sometimes when you do that, nothing happens as far as items moving or something unexplained, moving like a string on your Venetian blinds that there's no fan or no AC on that's causing it to blow or move. So, you know, I don't I think ghosts and spirits pick and choose who they communicate with. I think they're
Yeah.
more apt to communicate with me because I believe in them. If you're a football player and you walk into a room and people say, "I hate football," you're probably not going to stay and talk to them. But if you walk into the
Right?
room and say, "Hey, I love football," then probably you're going to stay and talk to them. And it's the same way with ghosts and spirits. They don't want to be communicating with someone that says, "Well, they don't exist. Why would I waste time communicating with them?" The ghosts and spirits probably don't want to spend time with them anyway because they probably think they're not too smart.
Yeah, and I think me personally, I think representation plays a lot in on whether you capture evidence or not. Uh, you know, everybody's different in representation and the way they present evidence. When they put devices out, everybody use different types of devices. But I've always been that one guy that thinks outside that little norm right there. And I think thinking outside that norm is a good idea. because let's go back to what we were talking about 20 minutes ago. You know, spirits are self-aware. They are aware of what we're doing at all times because they're constantly watching. Whether they interact with you or not, they are always watching you. Believe it or not, I think there are more spirits on this planet than there are humans. I,
Yeah,
that's just,
probably.
that's just me because I definitely think there are more people dead than there are more people alive on this planet. I mean, I could be wrong. So there are constantly spirits evolving, spirits always just out there living their everyday life and doing what they do. You know what I'm saying? But certain spirits are like humans. They're curious, but yet they're like they're like humans also. They get tired of the norm. So to me, I'm always thinking outside of that particular box because these guys here are thinking the same way that I think. They're always thinking like, hey man, I am it's like eating spaghetti. If you eat spaghetti 3 days out the week, aren't you not going to be tired of spaghetti? Come Friday, I'm going to be tired of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's the same way. I mean, if you present the same thing, they will get tired of it. And that's why I think some of these huge locations don't get the evidence when people go in. I think that's why they don't get the evidence that they are hoping to get, especially when you're paying large sums of money. Dude, money don't grow on trees these days. Not like the way it used to
Yeah.
in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You can get money anywhere. But
Yeah.
2000s and the 20s, nah, money ain't not. You gotta bust your ass to make your money. So money, when you spending $700 to go in location, you expect some type of evidence. Now, it's not up to the owner to present that evidence. It's up to you to reach out to the individual that you're trying to reach that evidence with to get them to communicate to you. Because this is how this works. It's a give and take. It's in
Well,
paranormal community, it's always been a give and take.
I
If you
think you're
present
better off.
something, huh?
I think most people are better off trying to go to a location like, say, an old Airbnb that hasn't been remodeled and has the original old flooring, ceilings, and walls and doors, and just go there and spend the night. In your own room, you can do whatever you want to do. You don't need
Right?
permission to do paranormal research. Now, you can't mention the name of the place unless you get permission to, because a
Exactly.
lot of people are afraid that other people are going to be afraid to come there if there's a ghost or spirit. So, you can't say where you're at. So, if they have a big, beautiful picture and say, Deer Valley Farms, Airbnb, you can't show that. You're going to have to avoid that. So, but anyway, I think you're better off trying to just go someplace where it's not so expensive. Most Airbnbs in Florida are probably going to be maybe 100, 150 a night. If you stay away from some of the real aristocratic places, places like Apalachicola are going to be very expensive, probably $200, $300 a night. And a lot of
Ooh,
these smaller towns, if you go there say during the middle of the week, you might get a better rate. So I would say go someplace like that. And ghosts and spirits really aren't impressed if you wear a uniform. So don't get all
right?
decked out and everybody wear a uniform like you're in the paranormal army or something. The ghosts and spirits don't care about that. If anything, treat the ghost and spirit the way you'd want to be treated. Say if you were a ghost, say you die tomorrow, how would you want a paranormal investigator to approach you? So just be
Exactly.
kind, be respectful, and don't. I say don't ask any question you wouldn't want someone to ask you. If I ask the ghost
Right?
of spirit, "What is your name?" I'll say, "My name is Keith Evans," so they know I'm more than willing to. say what my name is, and then they're probably more than willing to give me a name also. And
You know, don't antagonize, guys. Whatever you do not antagonize the spirit. I never could understand why somebody would go in somebody's, just like me going into your house and I would antagonize you. I mean, I understand if it's a football game and we're talking crap to each other. That's what men's supposed to do. But if you are in the paranormal business and you're going into a location and you're antagonizing people, sometimes you got to, you know, take what you're about to get, because trust me, majority of the time, something weird is gonna happen to you. You know, so let's not antagonize. You know, that's something I really don't like to do. And I know these young generations, I know that is their favorite thing like they do, because people on TV antagonize and all that stuff, but that is not cool. Do not do that. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
I don't do that at all. I never went out to pick a fight with a ghost. I can get more ghosts and spirits by being nice and kind. And if anything, if you go to an Airbnb, compliment the original owner. Tell the original owner how happy you are to spend the night in this old house and how happy you are that they built that old house. That will probably get you more paranormal activity than anything. Because one thing ghosts and spirits do have, they have their original, I would say, likes and dislikes. They
Mhm.
still remember their house. They still love their house, and the house is their favorite. And if you like it, then they're gonna like you. And that's the best way to get communication.
And
And
you're right,
that's what
Keith.
works for me.
You're absolutely right. But the only problem that I have about today's society, they don't see the antiques. They don't see what me and you see when we look at certain things. You know, they're so quick to pick up a hammer, smash that wall down to remodel. Dude, no.
Right.
You know, if you're gonna remodel back to the original house. How you doing, Carlos?
Hey, Carlos.
So originate back to the original house, and I guarantee you, people would appreciate it more because it's the original house compared to something new, something modern. If you want something new, something modern, why not just go build your house from the ground up?
Yeah. Hey, Carlos has usually has some really good questions. So, Carlos, if you have a question for us, let us know.
Yes, please, Carlos. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. Cheryl, if you got any questions to ask. Kenny, how you doing? If you got any questions to ask this gentleman, feel free. With that being said, Keith, we're going to jump into the vampire aspect of the podcast, because I think, is it vampirism? Has It's a little bit more curious to me. Uh, what do you think that word vampire originated from?
Well, in my new book, Planet of the Vampires, they come from Proxima Centauri b, which is a planet in the inhabitable zone uh, of its star, which is called Proxima Centauri. And Proxima Centauri b is close enough to its white dwarf star that it is actually tidal locked. So one day is actually 1 year for its star, Proxima Centauri. And that's what it means to be tidal locked. One side of the planet is always facing the star, and then there's a dark side of the planet that never gets any sunlight. Uh, I'm trying to read the question. Did you get that question?
Yeah,
It
there you
popped
go.
up so fast. I just popped in right now. I'll listen. Okay, so when you have a question, let us know. And anyone else, I might have missed you. If I'm concentrating on what I'm saying, I could have missed you. So if you're here and you're watching, I'm sorry I missed you. And just ask the question when you have one. More than happy to answer it.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, that's where I feel the vampires came from. And Proxima Centauri is B is a type of planet where even vampires mostly will live underground. They're not going to really live on the surface. The surface is just going to be either too hot, too cold, and there is like that area where, like a circumference around the globe of Proxima Centauri B, where there's probably maybe 50 kilometers, maybe 60 kilometers, where it's always like right between sunset, um, where it's sunset 24 hours a day in
It's
that node.
pretty much like Twilight.
Um, Twilight Zone, yes, that's what it's called. And in that Twilight Zone, it might have pretty well neutral temperatures where they could live. But the only problem is you're going to have wind coming from the hot zone rushing over to the cold zone. And when that happens, the wind might be hurricane force type wind moving in one direction. So if you would live on the surface, you'd probably need some type of fortified building or something. Um, so anyway, that's the reason why most of the vampires have adapted and live underground. And I'm basing this on what I've read. It's more or less a educated guess on the biosphere, which means everything that the vampires would need to live. And I really feel they're living underground. They're probably far enough underground on the hot side so that the rock's not molten lava, you know, and they're probably far enough on the cold side so they're isolated from the very, very cold temperatures. And as you know, vampires don't really have a life cycle. Like here on Earth, everything is born to die. Not that way on Proxima Centauri B. Even plants and animals, which I feel that most of their plants and animals are kind of a mixture of both, not like
Hmm.
here on Earth. And I feel that they can live forever. Now they can be destroyed, and a vampire can be destroyed, but other than that, they don't really have a life cycle where they die, so they can live for hundreds of years. Now, if a vampire was to freeze, he'd be in like suspended animation. As soon as someone rescues a vampire and falls him out, he'd be as good as new. So freezing is not going to kill a vampire. But there are
Right.
things. If a vampire was exposed to severe heat, they would just, it would be enough that they would just, you know, turn to, they'd boil. It would burn them and boil them and they just turn to smoke if it's that severe of heat. So that
Right.
would definitely destroy a vampire. And there's other things
Interesting.
like, say, being exposed to nuclear radiation or radioisotopes that could actually kill a vampire. And I think fire or an explosion would kill a vampire or destroy a vampire. But as far as a vampire having a definite, date that they can only live to be so old, like say a dog or a cat might live to be 20 at most, humans might live to be a little over 100 at most. Vampires don't have any expiration date like that. So I don't think every world has life that is expected to die. And vampires can live, forever if possible.
Okay. The question that Carlos, can you see that on the screen, or is it too
No, it's
small
too
for
small. Too small.
you? Okay.
Could you read it? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I can see it now. Is it possible that these vampires that live in different environments and have different diets that could give off different appearances? Some look human, others look like cryptids. Thoughts, Terry and Keith. Well, I think diet has a lot to do with how we look. If you eat a poor diet, you might look like you're, just haven't had enough sleep. If you have a very strong diet with, say, coffee, and you might look like you're ready to just run in place, wherever you're at. So diet does have an effect on your physical appearance, but I can't say other than Hollywood or TV that's where I've seen most of my vampires. The only time that I have seen what I thought could be possibly a vampire was when I was doing paranormal research at the 1880, and I mentioned it in my book, Vampires Dead or Alive. And it was a young lady that no one else could see except for me. And I didn't know that until later on in my visit. I was there for almost 2 months. So I didn't know that nobody else could see her. And she had dark brown or black hair, and she had very, white people in Florida don't stay white very long. They either turn red or turn brown because the sun will do that to you unless you, wear a floppy hat all the time when you're out. So
Mm-hmm.
this was one young lady who wasn't even wearing a hat that I ever remember seeing her wear, but she had such pale skin. And so I'm not saying she was, but she could have been a vampire. And she seemed to have possibly the ability to communicate with me directly to my brain. Because if no one else could see her, how else was I able to see and hear her unless she was sending that information directly into my brain? So, most people say, well, you're delusional. Well, most people that are delusional, they usually, you know, they have negative delusions. This young lady
Yeah.
was very attractive. She was a very attractive young lady, other than the fact that she had that unusual pale skin, and she had the. I don't know if everybody remembers Shirley Temple as a child actor who always had those kind of big curls in her hair.
Yeah.
She kind of had curls like that. You don't see too many women today have curls in their hair. That kind of went out with the
No.
50s and the 60s.
Right.
So she had a haircut that resembled someone from that era, at least to my perspective. I don't remember anything prior to the 50s, or I came along in the late 50s. Um, but I've seen TV programs from the 50s and even the 40s, and a lot of ladies had the larger curl type hair, and they did in the at least early to mid 60s also. So I can't say I've seen that many vampires to really say to compare, but I do know that diet will affect your appearance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is just Hollywood, but it could be, but I was always told that today's human blood is just too fatty for vampires just to drink. I don't know if that's true or not, but our diets are totally different compared to the way people ate back in the late 18, 19, maybe 20th century. So the blood was different. It wasn't as fatty as it is now, because back then a lot of people didn't eat a lot of fat foods. You know, uh, what do you think about that?
Well, I think blood in general, any type of blood from any animal or humans, isn't that nutritional, and it's high in iron. So vampires, like vampire bats, vampire humans, they have something within their digestive tract that can remove that iron, because that would kill you if you had too much iron in your body. So, and that's what happens with vampire bats compared to fruit bats. In my book, Vampires Dead or Alive, I looked at the research that was done by a research team. I think they were from New Zealand, and they looked at vampire bats from South America as compared to the fruit eating bats and bug eating bats from South America. And one thing that the vampire bats had was their digestive system was lined with special tissues to filter out the iron from blood. And then that tissues were actually eliminated through the number two waste. Let me see. Look like you met a possible vampire and could have lived over 100 years, if not 200 years old, just a guess. That's a possibility. Definitely someone who seemed to at least be caught in the style of the 40s and 50s. So that could be over 100 years old, yes. So, but anyway, I really don't feel that blood is that nutritional. Now, on other planets, the blood consistency could be a lot more consistent. Uh, Good theory of a especially different diets and human blood back then as of now. Um, anyway, I really don't feel that blood is that nutritional. Even if a human does eat a lot of starches and it still is not that nutritional for a adult vampire. But on Proxima Centauri b, like I talk about in my book, Planet of the Vampires, blood on that planet might be very nutritional and might hold more nutrition than blood on our planet holds. So vampires on Proxima Centauri b might be able to just drink 1 pint a day, and that might be all to give them the nutritions that they need. And I think on that planet they might also be able to get blood from kind of like the way we drink tea. They might actually be able to get blood from the hair or the outer covering of their animals that are kind of like on planet Earth would be part animal, biological animal, and part plant, like a plant that could actually uh, get nutrition from light, even artificial light. So, you know, I think there's multiple ways that a vampire can actually obtain nutrition without having to do like the Hollywood thing of, biting or committing a felony and killing someone by biting them in the neck. And I think if we have plants that we take care of, kind of like the way we grow a garden and eat the vegetables, the plants on Proxima Centauri b are like they live as long, if not longer, than most trees. I think the redwood trees can live to like 600 to 800 years. Now these plants can live forever unless something destroys them. And the plants on Proxima Centauri b are like a combination of biological animal and plant life that we have here on Earth, to be able to explain it to you. And these plants don't need locomotion. They don't need to run around in the caves of Alpha Centauri b, so they can like have roots and just stay in one spot. And I think they get nutrition from minerals in the ground, and artificial light can actually give them like chlorophyll. They can uh, feed themselves off of that if they don't have anything else. But I think that is one way. These plants might have leaves or kind of grow a surface, like say you have to mow your lawn. So the way you would have to cut your dog's hair if it's a long, shaggy haired dog, the vampires may cut their plants and their animals that actually grow in the ground. They might trim them up, and then they take that whatever trim it is, whether it's grass or hair or kind of like a shingle covering that we have on a roof. They take that and they soak it in water, and then they drink the blood from that. because the blood's going to leach out. So that can be another flavor drink that vampires on I mean, Proxima Centauri B can utilize for nutrition.
Interesting. Do you think all vampires live in coverings, or do you think they all live as one big happy family?
Um, I think that vampires on Proxima Centauri B are pretty much loners. I think they all have this code of conduct to the point where they don't need a government, they don't need police officers, they don't need judges or juries or prisons or anything like that. Um, and vampires can read brain waves, even of another vampire and a human. So they know what you're thinking. Excuse me. And they've been able to filter this out over, thousands of years to the point where they don't pay attention to your brainwave if you're looking at the next door neighbor's wife in a bikini and saying, wow, they just filter that out. They only zero in if you're saying, man, I'd sort of like to rob that vampire. Then they're going to know what your intentions are. And I
Right.
think that cuts down on any type of white collar crime, like asking people to invest in something where there is nothing to invest in and they lose all their money, or it lets the vampire know the other vampire's intentions if they mean him harm. So why would you want to harm somebody if they already know what your intentions are? So I think
Exactly.
that cuts down on any possible crime on Proxima Centauri B, because vampires already know what the other vampires' intentions are. So I really feel that there's limited government, and I think all vampires work together on that planet just to make sure that everybody's safe, that everyone has enough food, that everyone has a place to live, because there's just not that many of them, and you don't really have to be uh, trying to procreate all the time because if you're going to live forever, it's going to get pretty crowded up here, or at least on Proxima uh, Centauri B. So I really feel that vampires pretty much have a good life and an independent life, and they don't really need a lot of government interference in their life, and they just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I don't think uh, they need anyone to guide them or tell them overall what's best for them. They do what's best for each vampire. And by
Mm,
doing that, it's usually best for the community too.
right, right. Keith, there is one name that I've looked. I mean, I've tried to research it. See how far back I can go, and just a little bit of the name is puzzling because it's a very famous name, and I'm just trying to figure out where it comes from. I mean, I don't know if it's just folklore or individuals actually have that last name. That is
Are you
Van
talking about the
Helsing.
name of the planet?
No, I'm talking about Van Helsing. I don't
Van
know
Delphi?
Yeah, Van Helsing. Van Helsing was a
Let's
name that in that it's a well famous name in vampire lore. They use it in a lot of movies. And like I said, I try to do a lot of research, but there's really not much turning up on it.
I've heard it too, but only on movies. So I'm not sure whether it's an actual surname or last name, and whether the whole family died off and there's no one with that last name anymore or not. Um, well, sometimes Hollywood will just make up a name because if you're doing a controversial subject and you use Mr. Smith, then all the Smiths might sue you for using their last name. So by making up a last name, then you're not going to offend anyone that has that last name.
But as far as I got back is the Catholic Church. One particular Van Helsing was a member of the Catholic Church, and he was a paranormal investigator. They sent him out on strange phenomenon, and allegedly, that's where he got his notoriety from because of the things that the Catholic Church sent him out to do. Now, mind you, this was uh, uh, what's his name? Enemy, the vampire's enemy, Dracula's enemy. There's a Dracula, there's a Van Helsing. They were two common enemies. They did not like each other. They needed to kill each other. More so, Van Helsing wanted to kill him than the other way around. Because the Catholic Church has ordered it. So if the Catholic Church ordered it, then it has to be done.
Now, are
But
you saying that this person actually existed? He was actually a priest?
to a certain part in the Catholic Church, he existed. But
Because
after
I
he
think I
left,
have heard of that name
but
related
after he
with
left,
a.
but after he left the Catholic Church, it kind of faded. It seemed like the Catholic Church just killed his name off. It just vanished. But the only way it's still kept alive today is movies. And I'm like thinking, like, dude, that is one powerful name where individuals are labeling you as a vampire killer. So that's telling me that vampires really existed. It's not vampire is just not a folklore. It's not just an urban legend. Certain vampires did exist or still existing today. And from what I'm getting, that this battle between good and evil is still going on to this day because there are certain cities that are allegedly, and I don't know if this is true or not, uh, 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 vampire heaven, where vampires with coverings that they have certain coverings in certain states, in certain countries, like New Orleans. I was told that New Orleans has a covering of vampires, and they only seem to focus. And I don't know why this is, Keith. They always seem to focus on locations where it's near water, and that's the strangest things because I always thought that vampires was not a big fan of water. I don't know. But you got New Orleans, you got San Francisco, you got LA, you got all these major cities that have coverings, coverings of vampire fractions that are thriving. But
Well,
yet, it's weird.
most big cities in America, and I think worldwide, are close to an ocean or a bay or something like that. Like Chicago's close close to the Great Lakes, and Houston is kind of close to the bays there at the Gulf. So most large cities are kind of close to the water, but so that might be more of a coincidence than it draws them in. But I don't know of any situation where a vampire would be harmed by water. If anything, vampires do need water. I think they
Exactly.
need to stay well hydrated, just like human beings. And if they can get enough liquid water from blood, then that'll do them fine too. But
Yeah. But you know what? Hollywood has made it seem like they only survive off blood. You know, Hollywood makes it seem like they can't survive off of nothing but pure blood. If you
Well,
look
I
at
think in the USA, a lot of movies are written just to scare people.
hmm
And a lot of people only want to deal with paranormal if they're being frightened. Kind of like Halloween as little kids, Halloween was all about being frightened. I always felt it had less to do with paranormal and more to do with just scaring little kids. And to me, I didn't really enjoy being scared at all as a kid. I wanted security. I wanted to know that my parents had enough money to feed me, that we were going to have a place to live. I wanted security. I didn't want to be frightened. Maybe the
right,
rich little kids wanted to be frightened, but I didn't want to be frightened. So um, I just say that Hollywood might make a lot more money if they brought paranormal across as a something that an educated person would look at and measure the pros and cons and just put it out there. This is the data that I found. These are the results I have drawn from my data. And I really feel that we probably are a nation that's hungry for that. And I think there is more and more people that want to see that. And they may not admit it because, if they admit, yeah, I like to see a paranormal program that looks at stuff seriously and just doesn't try to scare the pants off of me all the time. If
right,
people really admit they'd like to see that, well, then they might say, well, I'm sorry, but we can't have you as an attorney for our law firm because you believe in ghosts. So we can't have you representing our clients. There's all these fallbacks on if you're a paranormal researcher or you're a person that went to see a paranormal movie about a paranormal researcher who treats it like it's a actual thing that exists and can be studied tangibly the way I go about doing paranormal research. Most people might go, but they're just not going to tell anyone they went and saw it. And that's the
right.
type of society we live in today, which is sad. I don't see how we're all that free if we can't tell people, yeah, I'm a paranormal researcher. The last person I said I was a paranormal researcher, I kind of dropped my guard. I'm up on the panhandle of Florida, and it's a very conservative area. And somebody asked me, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Well, I've been doing paranormal research." And, the lady looked at me and said, "So you're a devil worshiper?" And I said, "It has nothing to do with that at all."
Yeah, I heard that last
So
night.
anyway, that is what I have to deal with. And yes, it's frustrating, and that's the reason why, unless I'm on a program like this, I don't advertise to everyone that I wrote a book. Uh, this past recent book called Planet of the Vampires. You know, it's a waste of time to advertise to people who won't give paranormal the time of day. If they won't give paranormal the time of day because they don't think it's there or it exists or whatever, you're wasting your time. And
Yeah,
if they draw these negative conclusions, like you're a devil worshiper just because you're doing paranormal research, well, there might be some person out there who wants to help God or Jesus and wants to get rid of you so God and Jesus can be happier without you. And then it could put your person and yourself in danger. So you have to be very careful when you're a paranormal researcher who you share that information with.
exactly. Because you definitely don't want to end up in the nut house.
Yeah, that is true. Especially when you know you're not nutty,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's
Especially
sad.
when you know you're not nutty. You know,
It, but
go ahead,
how
Keith.
free are we when we live in that type of society?
Yeah, I don't think you're free at all.
Yeah. We just have the illusion of freedom. I
Yeah,
remember there was a comedian. I can't remember his name. He was kind of like a skinny white guy, but he was pretty good. He was saying all this stuff 20 years ago, and it's just an illusion that we're freedom when we have freedom. If I lived in another country, I could probably afford to buy a house. But
yeah,
right now, if I
definitely.
bought a house and if I had kidney failure again, I would lose that house, everything I had in it. When I had kidney failure, I had three types of insurance. I had, well, I only had two types. I had TRICARE and Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and I still end up paying almost 20,000 out of the pocket.
Hey,
Because I was in the hospital for almost 60 days, and they didn't know what was wrong with me, so they tested me for everything under the sun. And when they do that, there's co-payments for every test, for every time they draw blood and test it. And
mm-hmm.
it over a 45-day period, it ran up a lot of money.
Oh
And
yeah, it does.
thank God I had two insurances, because I think just the 6 days that I was in the ICU, uh, that was over 100,000 right there. That the insurance has covered most of that, but there's just certain deductibles that you or co-payments you have to pay for certain tests. And they were like checking out my liver, checking out my heart, checking out my lungs, even tests I'd never even heard of before. And it turned out it was my kidneys. So, but anyway, you never know when something's going to go wrong. And in America, unless you have deep pockets, which I don't, the money's got to come from someplace to pay your part of
Yeah,
the share. And
most
sometimes you
definitely.
can stretch it out 3, 4, 5 years. But I hate to go too much in debt for anything. If something goes wrong, I might lose it all. Where in
Yeah.
some countries they have universal health care, where that's not going to happen to you. You're not going to have to file bankruptcy because you got sick. And that sounds a hell of a lot more appealing to me than what we have here in America. And we're the only industrialized democracy in the world where people vote that does not have socialized medicine for everybody. You know, most countries, your health insurance is a guaranteed right. They might take it out of your taxes, but hey, they probably don't take out any more than what they're taking out now.
Ooh
Let
wee.
me see. Carla says, tell me about that. Healthcare insurance is pain. It gets my insulin and my medformin. Yeah, insulin is just very expensive. I have a lot of friends here in Florida that are on insulin, or at least diabetics and need medication. And I thank God every day that I'm not a diabetic. I could die in my sleep tonight if my kidneys fail, but otherwise that I'd like to buy a house. And sometimes I think, well, if I move to Australia or Canada, or I like to go someplace halfway warm, or even Europe, I might be able to afford to buy a house before I die. That would be wonderful. I'd be tickled to death.
Yeah,
So,
that would be amazing.
um, I think everyone should be proud of themselves, proud of their country. But this country has a lot of shortfalls that we need to work on. We just can't say,
Exactly.
oh, it's the greatest country ever. We need to work on a lot of things. Then it can work towards being one of the greatest countries in the world. And we do need some type of health care for everyone, so that everyone is covered and everyone gets health care and doesn't have to break the bank and file bankruptcy to get health care. And I don't think that's asking too much.
No, I don't think it is. Trust me, I don't think it is either. You know, but when you got that green dollar, man, that green dollar, that's the root of all evil.
Yeah.
I mean, a
Well,
lot
it's
of
sad.
people.
So much done in this country is done to make a few very rich, and everyone else can just go to that place that starts with the word H, which is sad.
Yeah,
I didn't see all that of what take a good chunk out of my paycheck. Yeah, I can imagine that. And they say that with this, what the conservatives are calling the big beautiful bill, if that bill stands and stays law, all of our health insurance may go up close to doubling, or at least increase by 75%. Now, I'm lucky. I have Blue Cross and Blue Shield. If they increase it by 75% or any amount that I can't afford, I can fall back on TRICARE. I have TRICARE for life, which is free. and I also can fall back on the VA, and I also have Medicare since I'm over 65. So anyway, I have fallbacks. But for people that don't have TRICARE or Medicare or the VA, uh, I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't want anybody in America to not have health care because they can't afford it. And I've seen too many people living in Maryland and short time in Georgia, Texas, and Florida. I've seen too many people get so sick because they couldn't afford to go to the doctor. Then when they did, they died.
It's
So
too
that
late.
doesn't have to happen. Too many Americans are dying because they're not getting any health care because they can't afford it. And that's
Right?
wrong. That's wrong. If anything is demonic or what was the term that lady used when I told her I was a paranormal researcher? Um, if anything is devil worshiping, it's not allowing people to have enough money to be able to afford health care. When your health care is not affordable, that's evil, plain and simple.
Yep, I totally agree with you on that, man. It's you know, it's all about the dollar, man. It's and that's what it's all about, and that's what it's going to continue to be until somebody gets in the office and changes all of this.
I hope a
Universal health
change comes
care.
soon. I hope it comes soon because we need a change.
Yep. Uh,
Let me see, not only that to keep the health insurance and makes it more difficult to get help or treatment to stay on top of health. That's true too. That's a good
yeah.
point, Carlos. I uh, I looked at some of my bills. Like say, my insurance pays for my COVID shot and it pays for my flu shot. If I didn't have that, both would be like over $100. And I'm saying, oh my God, thank God I have insurance. Let me say, I
Yep.
didn't see that last one that Carlos put up. Changing doctors, you need authorization, even though the doctor approved it from the insurance company. Yeah, I had that with my medication that I take for my kidneys. The insurance company's got to authorize it, even though the doctor wants to give it to you. So anyway,
Yep.
I hope that you know I've been I started out as a volunteer firefighter and an EMT, and I did that for like 13 years for no pay at all. And I always wanted to make sure people had medical care, and I always thought that was a valuable thing to do for the community. And
Exactly.
as an army medic, I always wanted everyone to have medical care. I was a medic for the Ranger School back in the early 80s. And I remember a lot of times the Ranger instructors would punish the students. And if they done something wrong, not let them see a medic. And I told them that was an unlawful order. And I went ahead and went around to all the Ranger platoons and pulled sick call. So that was one of those things where I always wanted everyone to have medical care, and I still feel very strongly in that.
Yes, sir. Man, the New Year's is it's 2 months away. What is your future plans for the new year? Are you planning on writing another book? What is your goal for New Year, Keith?
Well, I like I like to follow up on the book that I was working on at the 1880 Victorian. I have a lot of old SD storage discs that I've been working on getting into, and I had to order a special cord from Amazon, and it's late coming. I haven't received it yet. It was supposed to come yesterday. So I was told it's coming sometime in the future, or I could cancel it and order another one. So hopefully it'll come late. But anyway, I had to download another app to open up the SD cartridges that my uh, camcorder from, I think I bought it in either late um 2018 or early 2019. But it seems to be now outdated to the point where I need special apps to even be able to uh, save or look at any of the information that I record with it. So I want to go back and refresh my memory on all the different videotapes that I recorded with my camcorder from the 1880. And I just might start working on a book from that, which will include the part that's already in Vampires Dead or Alive about that young lady that only I could see and no one else could see, which she may have been a vampire. She may have not been. But anyway, I might work on that book next. And I just have to take time, look at all the tapes. I'm not going to do the 1880, uh, 1880 Victorian, that house. I'm not going to do that book about that house. I don't know what I'm going to name it yet, but I'm not going to do it the way I did the Hayes House Ghost or People too. I'm not going to do a blow by blow of everything I did paranormal wise. I think I'm going to more or less tell a story about each paranormal session with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and include my data. And at the same time, you know, give my analysis of that data. Even though a lot of times you might think about it a couple years before you draw that analysis, but once you draw it, that's your analysis. And I think it helps the reader to understand the paranormal more. If you just tell them all the data that you got and then go back later and give your analysis, it might lose some, legitimate content. They might not see it anymore. But while you're telling them about it and it's fresh in your mind, if you give them an analysis of it in the book right there and then, that might help people to understand the paranormal a bit more. Because someone who hasn't done a lifetime of paranormal research like me, they might say, well, so what if there's a cold area in the room? So what? What's that got to do with the paranormal? So if you actually tell them that, when you see it, you know, even though I don't think I got any cold areas when I was at the 1880, but just using that as an example, it would help people understand what you saw and seen and give it some content as to why it was important paranormal wise. So I
Right.
hope to do something like that. I think a lot of people I found who read the Hayes House Ghost or People too, they were like turning back to see, I'm looking at the data now, a chapter later. Now I'm turning back to the other chapter to see what actually happened and then compare it to what you're saying. So I found people just kept having to use it like a reference book and going back and forth. And I like to cut that out because a lot of people are just too tired and too busy to really to analyze your information when you compartmentalize it like that. It might be good if you're writing a report for like your science and you're submitting it to the government or whatever. But when it comes to a person reading a book, they want it kind of eliminated and put in a more compact way so it's easier for them to think about it and understand it right there and then. And
Mm.
some people don't have enough, they don't have enough knowledge about the paranormal to know the significance of everything that's happening.
Interesting. Do you think society is ready for a cryptid such as a vampire to come out and say, "Hey, I'm here"? And if they
I don't
are,
think so.
how do
I
you
don't
think they
think
will
so.
react?
Well, I think, people like you and I would probably say, yeah, well, we knew it all along. But
Right?
for a lot of people, it might, it might cause them to run out and buy lots of weapons and be standing by their door waiting for the neighbor to go by and say, "Oh my God, I thought it was a vampire. That's why I shot." It's going to scare the H out of a lot of people because people are just easy to scare. And that's the reason why me knowing everything that I know up front and impersonal with ghosts and spirits, let me see, not ready, not for a few hundred years. You might be right about that, Carlos. It's going to be a while. They're definitely not ready now. Some people like I would be ready. Uh, but there'd be so many other people who aren't ready, and they would probably be running around panic stricken and looking at everyone. Are you a vampire or are you a human? And then some innocent person is going to get shot because they were afraid that that person was a vampire. So
Have
we
you
don't need
seen
that. There's enough violence already.
Have you seen that new TV show, the new make of Interview with the Vampire?
I I don't really go to movies that often, and
No,
I
no,
haven't seen TV. I don't even have cable TV. I the food bill kept going up, and I had to do away with my cable. So I haven't watched anything on TV unless it's mentioned on the internet. I still have the internet, so no, I have not saw that.
mm, pretty interesting show. It dives into the life of whether you believe Hollywood got it or not, got it right or not. That's debatable. But it dives into the life of certain vampires, from 500, 600 years ago till modern day New Orleans. It tracks the life of a vampire. He actually wrote a
Well,
book about their whole lives. It's pretty interesting.
since since vampires don't die, they'd have to disappear, move out of town, and reinvent themselves someplace else. If they
Yep.
don't, people would get suspicious. It
Yep.
would be like, that guy that's been coming to bingo for the last 300 years and sitting at the table in the back? He was coming to bingo when my great grandfather was here. Look, there's a picture
Oh
of,
shit.
my great grandfather and him, and then a picture of me sitting beside him. They would have to reinvent themselves and disappear and go to where someone doesn't know them, and just yeah, say, well, I'm 50, but I look old because I worked hard. They'd have to say something like that. That way they could live there for 50 more years. And then when they get to be 100, move someplace else.
Hmm. That's normally, and that is exactly how the book, I mean, the TV show portrayed it because they lived a certain amount of time in a certain city. People start realizing, hey, man, you're not Asian. So they had to go to France. They figured out France. They figured that out. Then they end up coming to New Orleans and figuring that out. Yeah, it was a big mess at one point, but it was a
Right.
very interesting uh, TV show. I mean, it
I'd like to
shows,
see that.
yeah, very interesting TV show. It got to the point where vampires, show their sexuality. They like males, females. It showed just about every aspect of a vampire's life. And it was cool. I really enjoyed the show, uh, and I think it put a light on vampires. To show that hey, all vampires aren't bloodsuckers like
Right.
people say they are. These guys were from the 18th century Victorian era. You know, England, where they had the little things on their heads and did all kind of makeup and stuff. It went back to that far, but it was a pretty good show. So I urge you, if you ever get a chance to just check it out on YouTube, just check it out. They got clips. and I think you would be
What was the
impressed.
actual name of the show? Do you remember?
Interview with the Vampire.
Interview with the Vampire. Okay.
Yeah, because he pretty much doing what you did. He actually writing a book about his life and how his life evolved into what it is now. All the twists, all the turns, all the backstabbing, just about everything that he went through, he had the guy write it in the book,
Right.
and
Well,
it was amazing.
let me see. Carlos says there are just a lot of a lot of theories or imagination on Hollywood views of vampires. Yeah, I would say Hollywood goes for whatever the general public is going to pay to see. And
Hmm.
since most people like to be frightened, they got to keep it somewhat scary. Uh, but I think that one you're talking about is probably pretty good. And
Yeah, and you know what?
I
Hollywood really have not produced any vampire movies. If I'm right, I think Blade was the last one.
and I never saw
Blade,
that one.
yeah, I think Blade was actually the last Hollywood produced movie that had a Well, he wasn't all. He was like half vampire, half human. So he had all the vampire traits. He had all the vampires, uh, everything. But he also aged like a human.
Right.
He had all the vampire strength, none of their weaknesses. But he did have that thirst, but he also had that age like a regular human being, which made him a
Right.
superhero because he was
Well,
because he was. Go ahead.
I feel that there's probably a little bit of vampire in all of us. I think that what separates us from the chimpanzees and the great apes is probably vampires manipulated our DNA. I think they were the ones that manipulated our DNA to make us more like them so they could mate with us. And I think they actually wanted the hybrid uh, human vampire creature just so their offspring could go out in the sun without, you know, um, my theory is if a
Hmm.
true 100% vampire is exposed to our star's sunlight, it will denature their DNA and kill them. That's the reason why they got to get, if they're exposed to the sun, they got to get out of there really fast and back into a shady area. And after all, we're the only animal on Earth that I know of that gets a suntan or a sunburn. And that's probably because of our ancestors being vampires. Because no other animal gets a suntan or a sunburn from being exposed to the sun.
All
And we
right.
do have DNA. We do have DNA within at least part of our DNA. Amino acids are different than other animals. So that's probably from the vampire spiking it. Let me see. Carlos says it could be possibly come, uh, possibly some people have natural fangs for teeth or sharpened teeth. I see in some of my friends. It's possible. I mean, cats have canines, dogs have canines, so it's not unusual for other animals to have pointy teeth. Now, whether they work like a suction of a hypodermic needle, I don't know, but it's not rare in our on Earth for other species to have those canine type, uh, for biting type teeth. So,
Hmm.
that's true. That is true.
Okay. Are there any other cryptids? I can't call a vampire a cryptid, but I don't know. I guess you could put them in there if you want. I mean, that's really debatable. Are
Yeah,
there
I consider
anything
them to be cryptids,
cryptids?
vampires.
Is there anything out there that you're gonna write a book about and do research on, or you just your main focus is gonna be with vampires and the paranormal?
Well, I don't know what the future will bring. A lot of times it's opportunity. If there's say appearances of Mothman near where I live, and I can investigate it and try to document it. Uh, or if I sell a whole lot of books and want to drive to West Virginia or Ohio, wherever that Mothman was, last seen, I might write about other things. It's all opportunity. If I have that opportunity, what is available? Um, if, for instance, if that young lady at the 1880 hadn't showed herself to me and no one else could see her, I would have never wrote about that. So it's all in having the opportunity. If I have opportunity to run across other cryptids, I certainly would like write about them. I'm open to writing about anything. It's just you have to have the time and the money and be in that location to actually witness it. I always want to write about something that I have firsthand knowledge of. I don't want to write about something just because someone told me it happened. I might mention that people have said this about that, but I want to be able to mainly write about what I have firsthand knowledge of.
Right. Wow, dude, that's okay. Well, the next time you write a book, make sure you put me in it. Make sure you put me in it, man. I would appreciate that. Man,
Yeah, you have to be a ghost or a spirit to qualify,
darn it.
or a
Well,
vampire.
you never know, man. You never know. Uh, do you think that a community of vampires, I know you said that society would never accept them, but is it possible that all that can change just by the way that they present themselves? Or do you think or Hollywood is fascinated on just making them look bad all the way around?
Well, anything is possible for in the future, and I can't really predict the future, but someday, vampires might actually be accepted species, and everybody might understand it, and that's a possibility. And I really think as we learn more about Proxima Centauri b, as we learn more about that planet, that would help at least either prove or disprove a lot of the theories I have about the possible biosphere that I feel the vampires live in there in Proxima Centauri b. So time will change everything that we know now, and we'll always get new and more updated information, whether it be through science or through paranormal research. So everything's bound to change. We're going to learn more. I'm sure there'll always be people that don't want to believe, no matter how much information is out there. There's still some people that think the earth is flat.
Yeah, I've
And
seen that debate on TV. I mean, I've seen that debate on YouTube, and it's unbelievable. That debate
well,
is unbelievable.
yeah, I agree with you. The earth is definitely round. You can tell by the way, we go around the sun and we have days, 24 hours, how there's
Yeah,
24 time zones, possible time zones in
yeah,
on Earth and
yeah,
stuff like
fine.
that.
The moon. Everything's evolved from east to west. Shit, it rises in the east, sets in the west. I mean, that's like a big circle. So that's like common knowledge, but there are still people out there that believe that the earth is like a pancake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, what is your proof? Give me your evidence, and you better come with something factual. You know what I'm saying? If you're not coming with something factual, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But it's just one of, I don't know, man. There's too many conspiracy theorists out here. I mean, there are so many out here that want to prove themselves right, you know. But here's the thing: you you got more conspiracy theorists out here that wants to prove themselves right, but there's not enough of the others, to show the conspiracy theories. Okay, well, give me your valid point. It's not enough of us out here, and there's a million of conspiracy theories, but there's only 500 people of us that wants to see the facts, and the rest of us, they just don't give a shit because they, like I say, they are stuck in their everyday life. It's like they're living in the matrix. You're stuck living in some kind of form of the matrix, and people are set to either do, Keith, what is the average person routine from the age of 18 to the time they die?
Most people work 2.5 jobs, and they have a day job, evening job, and then a weekend job. And most people just don't have time to do anything more than to struggle to pay all their bills and work a little bit more.
That's it.
And it's
You
sad.
know,
It's sad.
they don't take time to enjoy what we talked about an hour and a half ago. They don't take time to enjoy the moment, because the moment, that little moment, it could be like this, and it could be a life-changing event for you. This right here, this from my finger to my thumb, can change your life. But nobody is out there taking that. They're living their lives, they're going to work, they're coming home, taking a shower, going to sleep, getting up, doing it all over again. Dude, you only got 24 hours in a day. A moment is a blink of an eye. Why not take it and enjoy that? You'd be surprised what your eyes and ears can see and catch in a moment. It can be a life
Well,
changer.
I will say one thing. A lot of people can't learn from my books because they're frightened. They say, well, if I read a book about vampires or ghosts and spirits, I won't want to sleep tonight. So if people are so frightened that they don't want to learn about the paranormal, you can't get them to change. They're not going to change. The only thing that can change about a person is if that person decides to make change. If I decide that it's important enough for me to write a book about the Mothman, I'd have to move to West Virginia or Ohio, wherever that is. Let me see. Carlos says paranormal research is all about data and evidence. People do not believe it, but at least it will get people to think. Laughing out loud. Yeah, some people will think, but there's some people that are so frightened they won't even read it. Carlos says it's not just they're frightened, they're not ready to accept that there could be something more than what they see or believe. Well, that's it too. But most people use the excuse to me that they're too frightened, that it would keep them from sleeping, especially more women than men. Because I'll ask women to read my book or to to look at me on YouTube, to look at my paranormal research, and they say, "Well, I can't do that because I don't know how scary it'll be, and I won't be able to sleep." So they won't even give it a try. Um,
Well,
where like something that doesn't scare me at all would scare them. And
yeah,
that's why I have to be careful when I invite someone to go and try to do paranormal research with me. suppose I have my camcorder and I let them hold it and they're focusing it on me, and then uh, Diablos 5 says, help. And they jump and throw the camera and the camera lands and breaks. Then I got to go out and buy another $250, $300 camcorder. So
Yeah.
some people that don't have the experience are going to react to, oh my God, help, someone's being hurt, I'm frightened. They're going to react to it in some type of way. So you have to be very careful if you invite people to go paranormal research with you, that could happen. It hasn't happened yet, but most people won't go in the first place. So, but anyway, you have to be very careful that if someone is prone to be frightened, that you don't hand them an expensive camera because it could get broken.
Oh, definitely. I've been down that road before. I've been down that road before. Keith, we're going on an hour and 40 minutes, man. A couple more questions, and I'm going to get you guys out of here. Uh, you know, oh,
Time goes
man.
fast.
Yeah, time, it runs. Knowledge, and I tell people this all the time. Knowledge is the key to the universe. Without knowledge, we have nothing
Yes.
because we won't be able to evolve as humans, and we won't be able to function as human beings. So, in order for us to even separate ourselves from the smallest animal on this planet, it would take knowledge because an ant that big has more knowledge probably than most of the people on the planet today. You know what I'm saying? So people need to open their eyes. Use the things that you were born with to understand things. If you open your eyes a little bit more, uh, you know, clear your ears out, listen to not the trucks, not everyday life, but just some of the smallest things, the smallest details that the nature has to offer, then you will realize exactly just how big this planet is and just how things really are on this planet. I mean, it's amazing because if you just sit there and you just listen a moment, you'll probably hear things you've never heard before because you're so busy in your everyday life. When was the last time you heard a cricket chirp? People in the big city don't hear that.
That's
When was the
true.
last time you heard a woodpecker peck? People in the big cities don't hear that. So you got to open up all your gifts for you to understand the big picture of what paranormal investigators, paranormal enthusiasts, paranormal ufologists, not ufologists, paranormal, psychologists. What all we're trying to tell you is there is a possibility of something out there that you've never seen, you've never heard before, and it's out there for you to pay attention to. All you got to do is everything that an arm reach, everything that an arm reach for you to, it's up to you to reach out and grab it and accept it and pull it in. If not, you're going to be in the dark. And you don't want
Well,
to be in the dark.
I found in the last, say, maybe since I retired in 2016, I've communicated with people, emails and text messages. Most of them I haven't seen in person. But the people who have shared this with me said that they didn't really believe in the paranormal until they had like a family member died, and then they would come up with this. Well, if you're happy at the afterlife, show me some type of sign, and then they would say something happened that was unique to the person who had passed away, and that was enough to make them feel that yep, there is a hereafter and there are ghosts and spirits. And different people have said different things. Like I think one lady said a certain bird that her son liked, after she said, show me a sign that you're okay after life, that bird like landed near where she was so she could see it. And that was like her son's favorite bird. And then somebody else said it was something else happened uh, that, made her think that the person who had passed away was giving her a sign that they were okay and happy in the afterlife. And then after that, she said she changed her mind and she did believe in ghosts and spirits after that. So that was one thing I found that people claim. The only thing I can think of right now where people have that moment where they say, "Yep, there are ghosts and spirits. They're here." So I would say that if anyone is out there, this is somewhat of a challenge. If you have a loved one that dies, you know what that loved one liked most, And for instance, ask the loved one, when you have time and you're alone, say, "Hey, are you okay in the afterlife? Show me a sign." And a lot of people say, I heard one gentleman said that uh, he was he turned on the radio, and the next song up was the person who passed away's favorite song. So he thought that was a sign. So it could be a coincidence. Who knows? But a lot of people who said they didn't have any connection with the paranormal, hadn't witnessed it, hadn't seen it, didn't really believe in it because they hadn't really experienced it. They usually say if they go about pursuing that after a loved one who's close to them passes away, they ask that loved one to show them a sign. They say they usually get a sign, and that's when they have a turning point and start to believe in the paranormal. So I don't know. I've never tried that. I did never had to because I always, well, since a small child, believed in the paranormal.
I've
But I've
always,
never asked
you
I've
know,
never asked
I've
anyone to give me
always
a
believed
sign.
that. I always believed that they walked among us.
Yes.
I mean, it's just one of those beliefs that I've just believed that they're here, and if the world was to blow itself up tomorrow with a nuclear war, they will still be here. They will be here long after we're gone. They're going to continue
Well,
living their life, and they're going to evolve. You
I,
know,
I think I think there are limits to how long a person may stay a spirit in a spirit form, because I think all ghosts and spirits are recycled, reincarnated, and I think we've been reincarnated over many times. Probably before Earth had human beings, we were probably beings on another planet or another universe. So I don't think just because we pass away, I don't think we're a spirit forever. I think we're reincarnated. And I think that's the reason why when you do paranormal research, I mean, you may not get a response because that person who passed away might have already been reincarnated and their soul is no longer in a spirit form or ghost form. They're now in a biological body someplace on Earth. It may not be a human, it might be an animal or a bird or insect or something, but they've moved on. So you may not always get responses when you go to a house and do paranormal research because everyone who's passed away that did live there might have already been reincarnated into another biological being. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
yeah, there you go.
All right, I can hear you
That,
now.
that's a good theory. That you know the reincarnation or the recycle of life. There is a lot in the certain religions that talk about the Hall of Souls, where souls are kept and they're in certain individuals are recycled back into human form, then sent back to live a life that they should have lived or live a life that will cut short, no matter what the situation may be. But the Hall of Souls would be very interesting to see. I think so. You know, if that theory is true, you know, but it says a lot because can you imagine if you were born in the 1600s and you're of pure energy and you've been dead for 300 or 400 years, maybe longer, and somebody's trying to communicate with you as a paranormal investigator. How do you communicate with that person? What would you tell some? What would you tell somebody? And seeing technology that you've never seen before because you died in the 1600s, but you've been communicated with somebody in the 21st century. You're seeing things you've never seen before. Would you want to interact with them, or would you like, no, I don't think so. I'm gonna leave this one alone because I'm afraid of what you're holding in your hand, and I don't quite understand it.
Right. And
You
I
know,
think that happens. I think a lot of times ghosts and spirits are actually frightened that, you know, if they communicate with us by manipulating the obelisk 5B, they might be fearful. Suppose I get in there and I can't get out, and I'd probably think the same thing as a ghost or spirit. But I think ghosts and spirits can pretty much travel through whatever they want to travel through. They're that small of a pocket, that small of a pocket of energy that they could probably just go through a human body because there's a lot of empty space within the human body. So if you're
yeah,
small enough, you can travel in a lot of places. There's a lot of nook and crannies out there.
yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. I think spirits can manipulate time and space. I think there are so many things that they can do, and I think there's so many things that they want to say, but I think they are governed by certain laws that they can't ask because most of the people that I know that are out there investigating, sometimes they ask questions that is that's unaskable. So you can't spirits definitely can't ask that particular question. Of course you might get a certain name, you might get a certain day or time, but when it comes to uh, what do you see? What do you hear? Sometimes you don't always get the response that you need, that you want. Is it, do you see roses? Who's with you? Or, and the worst, most common thing that spirits don't ask you, I've always seen to ask is, have you ate lunch today? And if you have, what did you eat? They always go silent when I ask that question. Even they say that we are not capable of eating, and I ask why. Because you have the same opportunity, you got the same device, you got a mouth, you got a tongue. So why aren't you eating? What is the reason why you don't eat? Y'all don't drink? There's a lot of things that you guys say you don't do, but have the capability to do it. If you have the
Well, ghosts and,
capability, huh?
ghosts and spirits are just electromagnetic energy, so they don't really need to drink or need to um, eat. I mean, when they appear, when they appear or materialize, they might appear as the last biological body that they were in, but they don't really have a biological body to digest food or to taste food or to drink water because they're just electromagnetic energy. So I really feel that a lot of ghosts and spirits don't really remember. They don't have the biological brain that we have to store the information and recall the information. And I find ghosts and spirits, if anything, can recall emotions about certain things. Like in the Hayes house, ghosts are people too. I had asked Pat Hayes, he was the second owner of the second family to own the Hayes house in 1942. And I asked him, what did he think about the Great Depression? And he just said anger. It made him angry. So I find ghosts and spirits are far more able to answer you if you ask a question about their emotions, about a topic that was very large in their life, not just a small topic, but a topic that was large. And anyone who was living during the Great Depression, just about everyone economically was affected by in a negative way to the Great Depression back in what 1929. So that's what I find. Ghosts of spirits, they can recall an emotional response to what happened during their life quicker and easier than say, what is your name or who are you with? Because a lot of times I don't think they have certain memories to be able to recall certain things that happened in their life because they don't have a biological brain to store it in. They do have some type of storage system that allows them to store memories, and at least memories to uh, tragic events that happened or events in their life that were outstanding in some way. I guess if you were talking to a ghost or spirit who won the World Series in 1936, and then you asked them about it, they might say, "Oh, it really felt good to win the World Series." So
Mm-hmm.
that would be an emotion. So if you know your ghost and your spirit and can direct a question to them that will bring out either a positive or a negative emotional experience that they had in their life, you're probably going to get a quicker answer on the Obelisk 5B. I've noticed that from past experiences. But a lot of times, I don't really know the ghost of spirit to be able to connect something like that. And I could just find graves where they were alive during the Great Depression and keep asking them about the Great Depression. But that might get old for whoever views my YouTube channel. But it's worth a try just to see if it repetitively works or doesn't work. But it has worked in the past as far as getting a response right away. And I find if they remember anything, they're going to remember emotion, something that was very emotional in their life.
Passionate to them. Something that I think that's passionate to them, like the birth of their kids, their marriage, their husband, their significant other, things that I think that has an effect on their lives. I think they will hold on to dearly.
Yeah,
So you're probably right on that. But the smaller shit, they probably wouldn't even care,
yeah,
you know. But giving life to their first son or daughter, that's a life changing a moment for everybody.
right.
Getting married and staying married for 30 something plus years and celebrating your 30th wedding anniversary, that's that is an emotional event right there.
Right.
That's something because a lot of people today aren't doing that. So it's just there's a lot, that you know that's out there and people should look at, and anybody out there that's listening to the show, you feel free to try any of these ideas that we presented to you guys tonight. And if you got any luck, hey man, please reach out. Let us know how it
Yeah.
turned out for you guys. I'm really curious. You know what I'm saying? But well, Mr. Keith, uh, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Any last comments before I get you out of here, sir?
Well, check out my book, Planet of the Vampires. It's available ebook on Kindle paperback on Amazon and hardcover on Amazon. So check it out.
All right, guys, you guys heard it, man. Planet of the Vampires. Please check it out. Go support this young man and show him all the love and support, man. Because everybody needs it at some point in time, you know. But with that being said, sir, I appreciate you coming on the show. Like
Thanks for
always,
having
I
me.
always enjoy your conversation. You're probably one of the five most interesting and influential individuals I've had on my. I've had many, but I can label you in my top five. So hey,
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. Uh, you
Was there
know,
any
uh,
questions from the audience before we
no
go?
sir, no
No,
questions
none.
from the
All
audience
right.
tonight, except for Carlos. Uh,
Yeah,
Most of them that came in said hello, how you doing? Then they left. You know,
right.
uh, but yeah, man, great show. I appreciate
And
it.
thanks, Carlos, for your questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carlos. Appreciate it. Anytime, hey, when we get out of here, feel free to do what you wish with this podcast. If you like, I can send you a link for the whole show, and you can put it on your social media if you like.
That would
It's
be good.
totally up to you, my friend. But one thing I have to say is keep doing what you're doing. A lot of respect for you.
Thanks.
And just continue educating people, man, because knowledge, guys, whether you believe it or not, is the key to the universe.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Key to the universe. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, always keep your head up, nose straight, eyes forward. And please, and when you're out there in the world, for a moment, just stop and listen. You'd be surprised what you might hear.
Mhm.
You'd be surprised. But with that being said, guys, welcome Mr. Keith Evans to the show again. And thank you for all the comments from Carlos and a couple others tonight. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support. And I will see you guys in a week or so. Hey, this is Terry with NSPS TV Paranormal on another great, successful Sunday in the Lion's Den with Mr. Keith Evans. Hey, you guys go check him out. Go buy his book and go show support. In the meantime, peace. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.